Brace yourself for a jaw-dropping expose. When a fearless attorney and a whistleblower team up, they unravel a judge's dirty secrets, leading to an epic courtroom takedown. But the fight for justice is just getting started. You won't believe who's pulling the strings behind the scenes. Stay tuned till the end to witness the ultimate fall from grace. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Chapter 1. Bombshell Revelation. The whistleblower steps out of the shadows. In the grimy heart of downtown, nestled between a bustling diner and a pawn shop, sat a cafe known more for its strong coffee than its ambience. The air was thick with the aroma of roasted beans and the hushed whispers of patrons seeking refuge from the city's relentless pace. Among them, Kyle Donahue, a man whose unassuming appearance belied the explosive secret he carried. Kyle's hands trembled as he clutched a worn manila folder, his eyes darting nervously around the room. He had chosen this place for its anonymity, a safe haven where he could reveal the truth that had been gnawing at him for months. The stakes were high, and the risks were even higher, but he knew he couldn't keep silent any longer. Across the table sat Pam Bondi, former Attorney General of Florida, a woman known for her iron will and unyielding stance against corruption. Her piercing gaze met Kyle's, and she leaned in, her voice low but commanding. "You said you had something big, Kyle. Let's hear it." Kyle took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. "It's about Judge Kinsey," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "He's been manipulating court cases for years, lining his pockets with bribes and kickbacks. I've seen it all, the fixed cases, the suspicious transactions. It's all right here." He pushed the folder across the table, his eyes never leaving Bondi's. Bondi's expression remained stoic as she opened the folder, her eyes scanning the documents with practiced efficiency. "This is serious, Kyle. You realize what you're getting into, right? Kinsey has friends in high places. This won't be easy." Kyle nodded, his resolve unwavering. "I know, but I can't live with myself if I don't do something. People's lives are at stake here. Justice is at stake." Bondi closed the folder, her mind already racing with the implications. "All right, Kyle. We're going to need more than just these documents. We need irrefutable proof, something that will stand up in court. Can you get us more?" Kyle hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I think so. I still have some contacts in the courthouse. I can try to get more evidence, but it won't be easy. Kinsey's got eyes and ears everywhere." Bondi leaned back in her chair, a determined look in her eyes. "Leave that to me. I'll make sure you're protected. In the meantime, keep a low profile. Don't talk to anyone about this, understand?" Kyle nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. He had taken the first step, and there was no turning back now. As he left the cafe, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, but he pushed the thought aside. He had made his choice, and he was in this for the long haul. Little did he know, his actions had set in motion a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of the judicial system. The fight for justice was about to get real, and Bondi was ready to lead the charge. The question was, would they be able to take down Kinsey before he struck back? The clock was ticking, and the stakes had never been higher. Stay tuned to find out what happens next in this thrilling tale of courage and corruption. Chapter 2. Iron Lady Unleashed. Bondi's War on Corruption begins. The city lights flickered outside Pam Bondi's office window as she pored over the documents Kyle had provided. Each page revealed a deeper layer of Judge Kinsey's web of deceit, and Bondi's resolve hardened with every sordid detail. She knew this case would be unlike any other. The stakes were monumental, and the opposition formidable. But Pam Bondi wasn't one to back down from a fight, especially when justice was on the line. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. Detective Mark Henshaw answered on the second ring, his gruff voice cutting through the static. "Henshaw here." "Mark, it's Bondi. I need you in my office, ASAP. We've got a situation." Henshaw arrived within the hour, his keen eyes scanning the documents spread across Bondi's desk. "What are we looking at, Pam?" Bondi leaned back in her chair, her expression grave. "Judge Kinsey has been playing puppet master with the court system. Fixed cases, bribes, offshore accounts, the works. And he's got powerful friends covering his tracks." Henshaw let out a low whistle. "This is big, Pam. We're talking career-ending big. You sure you want to dive into this?" Bondi's eyes flashed with determination. "Damn right. I'm sure. We can't let this slide, Mark. If we don't take him down, who will?" Henshaw nodded, a grim smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "All right. Where do we start?" Bondi handed him a stack of papers. "We need to follow the money. Kinsey's been moving funds around, trying to stay under the radar. We need to find out where it's going and who's helping him." Henshaw flipped through the pages, his brow furrowed in concentration. I've got a contact at the IRS who owes me a favor. I'll see if they can trace these transactions. Bondi stood up, pacing the length of her office. Good. In the meantime, I'll start building a case. We need witnesses, hard evidence, anything that will stick in court. As they delved deeper into the investigation, Bondi and Henshaw uncovered a tangled web of corruption that stretched far beyond Judge Kinsey. Powerful figures in politics and business were implicated, their names whispered in hushed tones among those who dared to speak out. The scale of the conspiracy was staggering, but Bondi remained undeterred. One evening, as they sat surrounded by stacks of evidence, Bondi turned to Henshaw, her voice steady despite the weight of their discovery. We're in deep, Mark. But we can't turn back now. Too many people are counting on us. Henshaw met her gaze, his resolve unwavering. We'll see this through, Pam. No matter what it takes. Their determination was palpable, a force to be reckoned with. But as they closed in on the truth, they knew the real battle was only just beginning. Kinsey and his allies wouldn't go down without a fight, and Bondi and Henshaw were ready to face whatever came their way. The city held its breath, waiting for the storm to break. Would Bondi and Henshaw emerge victorious, or would the corrupt machine grind them down? Stay tuned to find out as the thrilling saga continues. Chapter 3, Shadows of Power, the Hidden Network Exposed. The city's underbelly teemed with secrets, and Pam Bondi was determined to drag them into the light. As she and Detective Mark Henshaw dug deeper into Judge Kinsey's affairs, they began to unravel a network of corruption that stretched far beyond the courthouse walls. Powerful figures lurked in the shadows, pulling strings and protecting their own. But Bondi wasn't about to let them stay hidden. One evening, Bondi and Henshaw found themselves in a dimly lit bar downtown, the kind of place where deals were made in hushed tones over glasses of whiskey. They were meeting with an informant, a man who claimed to have inside knowledge of Kinsey's operations. The air was thick with tension as they waited, eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of trouble. A man in a rumpled suit slid into the booth opposite them, his eyes darting nervously. You Bondi? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Bondi nodded. And you are? Name's not important, he muttered. What matters is what I know. Kinsey's got friends in high places, politicians, businessmen, even a few cops. They're all in on it, covering his tracks, making sure he stays untouchable. Henshaw leaned in, his voice low and steady. We need names, evidence, something concrete. The informant glanced around before pulling out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. This is a list of names, accounts, transactions. It's all there. But you didn't get it from me, understand? Bondi took the paper, her eyes scanning the list. We'll keep your name out of it. But we need more. We need to know who's pulling the strings. The informant hesitated before leaning in closer. Word is, there's a meeting happening tomorrow night. Kinsey and some of his associates. They're planning to move a large sum of money offshore. If you can get eyes on that meeting, you'll have all the proof you need. Bondi and Henshaw exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They knew the risks, but they also knew this could be the break they needed. As they left the bar, Bondi's mind raced with the implications. They were closing in on Kinsey, but the stakes were higher than ever. One wrong move could send the entire investigation crashing down around them. The next night found them staked out in an alleyway, eyes trained on a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The air was thick with anticipation as they waited, cameras at the ready. They couldn't afford to miss a single detail. As the minutes ticked by, a sleek black car pulled up to the warehouse. Kinsey emerged, flanked by two men in suits. Bondi's heart pounded in her chest as she watched them disappear inside. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. Henshaw's voice was a low murmur in her ear. We need to get closer. Can you cover me? Bondi nodded, her grip tightening on her gun. Go. I've got you. Henshaw moved swiftly, sticking to the shadows as he made his way towards the warehouse. Bondi watched, her breath held, as he slipped inside, disappearing from view. The seconds stretched into minutes, each one feeling like an eternity. Suddenly, the sound of raised voices echoed through the night. Bondi's heart leapt into her throat as she saw Henshaw emerge from the warehouse, Kinsey and his men hot on his heels. She raised her gun, ready to provide cover, but Henshaw was already sprinting towards her, a triumphant grin on his face. Got it, he panted, holding up a small device. Every word, every transaction, it's all recorded. Bondi let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They had done it. They had the evidence they needed to take down Kinsey and his entire network. But as they made their escape, Bondi couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was only just beginning. Would they be able to bring the corrupt judge to justice, or would the shadows of power consume them all? Stay tuned to find out as the thrilling saga continues. Chapter 4. Race Against Time. Kinsey's House of Cards wobbles. The city skyline glowed with an eerie light as Pam Bondi and Detective Mark Henshaw huddled in her office, poring over the evidence they'd gathered. The clock was ticking, and every second brought them closer to the moment when Judge Kinsey would slip through their fingers, disappearing into the shadows with his ill-gotten gains. They couldn't let that happen. Bondi's phone buzzed on the desk, a message from their informant flashing across the screen. Kinsey's on the move. He's transferring funds as we speak. Henshaw looked up, his expression grave. We need to act fast. If he gets that money out of the country, it's game over. Bondi nodded, her mind racing. We need to freeze his assets, but we can't tip him off. We have to be smart about this. She picked up her phone and dialed a number, putting it on speaker. A gruff voice answered, DA's office. It's Bondi. I need a warrant to freeze Judge Kinsey's assets. We have evidence of money laundering and corruption. There was a pause on the other end, then a heavy sigh. Bondi, you know this is a big ask. Kinsey's got friends in high places. If we move on this and it blows up in our faces. Bondi cut him off. I know the risks, but we can't let him get away with this. We have the evidence, and we need to act now. The DA hesitated before responding. All right, Bondi. I'll get the warrant, but you better be sure about this. One wrong move, and we're all going down. As they waited for the warrant, Bondi and Henshaw knew they couldn't sit idle. They had to keep digging, keep pushing until they had Kinsey cornered. They split up, Bondi heading to the courthouse to keep an eye on Kinsey, while Henshaw followed the money trail. The courthouse was a flurry of activity as Bondi slipped inside, her eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of Kinsey. She spotted him in his chambers, his face a mask of calm as he signed documents, oblivious to the storm brewing around him. Bondi's heart pounded as she watched him, the weight of their mission pressing down on her. Meanwhile, Henshaw found himself in the dimly lit backroom of a bank, poring over financial records with a contact who owed him a favor. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and the hum of fluorescent lights. These transactions, Henshaw said, pointing to a series of numbers on the screen. They're all linked to offshore accounts. We need to trace them back to Kinsey. His contact nodded, fingers flying over the keyboard. It's going to take some time, but I think I can do it. Give me a few hours. Time was the one thing they didn't have. Bondi's phone buzzed again, another message from their informant. Kinsey's getting antsy. He's planning to leave the country tonight. Bondi's heart leapt into her throat. They were running out of time. She called Henshaw, her voice urgent. Mark, we need to move now. Kinsey's about to bolt. Henshaw's voice was steady, despite the pressure. I'm almost done here. Meet me at the airport. We'll intercept him there. The airport was a bustling hive of activity as Bondi and Henshaw arrived, their eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of Kinsey. They knew he wouldn't go down without a fight, and they were ready for whatever he threw their way. As they waited, Bondi's phone buzzed with a message from the DA. Warrenson, freeze his assets. Bondi let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They had done it. They had cut off Kinsey's escape route. But the battle was far from over. As they braced themselves for the confrontation ahead, Bondi and Henshaw knew they were in for the fight of their lives. Would they be able to take down Kinsey before he slipped away? Or would his web of corruption ensnare them all? Stay tuned to find out as the thrilling saga continues. Chapter 5, Courtroom Clash. Bondi faces off against Kinsey. The courthouse buzzed with an electric tension as Pam Bondi strode through its hallowed halls, a folder clutched tightly in her hand. Today was the day she would confront Judge Kinsey, laying bare his web of deceit for all to see. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the air crackled with anticipation. Bondi pushed open the heavy wooden doors of the courtroom, her heels clicking sharply on the polished floor. All eyes turned to her as she made her way to the front, her gaze locked onto Kinsey, who sat on the bench, his expression a mask of calm. But Bondi could see the flicker of unease in his eyes. He knew something was coming. Your Honor, Bondi began, her voice echoing through the chamber. I have evidence that implicates you in a series of corrupt activities, including manipulating court cases for personal gain. A murmur rippled through the courtroom as Kinsey's eyes narrowed. Ms. Bondi, these are serious allegations. I trust you have proof to back up such claims. Bondi didn't flinch. I do, Your Honor. I have documents, transaction logs, and witness statements that all point to your involvement in these crimes. Kinsey leaned back in his chair, a smug smile playing at the corners of his mouth. This is preposterous. You have no concrete evidence, just baseless accusations. I won't have my reputation sullied by such nonsense. Bondi's eyes flashed with determination. Oh, but I do have evidence, Your Honor, and I'm more than happy to present it to the court. She opened the folder, pulling out a stack of papers. These are records of offshore accounts in your name, Your Honor. Accounts that have seen a significant influx of funds over the past few years, funds that can be traced back to bribes and kickbacks. Kinsey scoffed. Circumstantial at best, Ms. Bondi. Anyone could have set up those accounts in my name. Bondi smiled, knowing she had him on the ropes. True, Your Honor. But when combined with these, she said, holding up a series of printed emails, it paints a very clear picture. These are communications between you and various individuals, discussing the manipulation of court cases in exchange for financial compensation. The courtroom erupted into whispers as Kinsey's face paled. Bondi pressed on, her voice steady and unyielding. And if that's not enough, I have a witness who is willing to testify to your involvement in these crimes. A witness who has seen firsthand the extent of your corruption. Kinsey's grip tightened on the gavel, his knuckles turning white. This is outrageous. I demand that these allegations be stricken from the record. Bondi met his gaze head on. I'm afraid I can't do that, Your Honor. The truth has a way of coming to light, no matter how hard you try to bury it. The courtroom held its breath as Bondi and Kinsey locked eyes, the tension palpable. Bondi knew she had him cornered, but she also knew that Kinsey wouldn't go down without a fight. As the hearing drew to a close, Bondi couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Kinsey's allies were still out there, lurking in the shadows, ready to strike. But Bondi was ready for them. She had drawn the line in the sand, and she wasn't about to back down. Later, as she and Henshaw regrouped in her office, Bondi let out a sigh of relief. We did it, Mark. We put Kinsey on notice. Henshaw nodded, a grim smile on his face. But the real battle is just beginning. We need to stay vigilant, Pam. Kinsey's not going to take this lying down. Bondi's expression hardened with resolve. I know, but we're not backing down. We've come this far, and we're seeing this through to the end, no matter what it takes. As they braced themselves for the storm ahead, Bondi and Henshaw knew that the fight for justice was far from over. But with each step forward, they were one step closer to dismantling Kinsey's corrupt empire. Would they be able to bring him to justice, or would the shadows of power consume them all? Stay tuned to find out as the thrilling saga. Chapter 6, Smoking Gun, the Whistleblower's Final Play. The city lights flickered in the distance as Pam Bondi and Detective Mark Henshaw sat in the dimly lit corner of a bustling diner, the aroma of coffee and fried food filling the air. They were meeting with Natalie Briggs, a former clerk in Judge Kinsey's chambers, who claimed to have the final piece of the puzzle, irrefutable proof of Kinsey's crimes. The tension was palpable as they waited, eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of trouble. Natalie slipped into the booth opposite them, her eyes darting nervously around the room. She clutched a small flash drive in her hand, her knuckles white from the grip. I can't stay long, she murmured, her voice barely audible over the din of the diner. If Kinsey finds out I'm talking to you. Bondi leaned in, her voice steady and reassuring. You're doing the right thing, Natalie. We need your help to bring Kinsey to justice. Natalie took a deep breath, her eyes meeting Bondi's. I know. That's why I'm here. This, she said, holding up the flash drive, contains everything you need. Transaction logs, case notes, conversations, it's all there. Kinsey's been careful, but not careful enough. Henshaw took the flash drive, his expression grave. This is huge, Natalie. With this evidence, we can finally nail him. Natalie nodded, a look of determination in her eyes. Just promise me you'll take him down. Too many people have suffered because of him. It's time for it to end. Bondi's gaze hardened with resolve. We promise, Natalie. Kinsey's reign of corruption ends now. As Natalie slipped away into the night, Bondi and Henshaw knew they held the key to Kinsey's downfall in their hands. But they also knew that the road ahead was fraught with danger. Kinsey's allies were still out there, and they wouldn't go down without a fight. Back in Bondi's office, they huddled over a laptop, the glow of the screen casting eerie shadows on their faces as they pored over the contents of the flash drive. Each file revealed another layer of Kinsey's deceit, the evidence mounting against him like a tidal wave. This is it, Bondi murmured, her eyes scanning a series of incriminating emails. With this, we can secure a warrant for Kinsey's arrest. It's over, Mark. We've got him. Henshaw nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Let's do this. Let's take down Kinsey once and for all. They worked late into the night, compiling the evidence and drafting the warrant. Every click of the mouse, every keystroke brought them one step closer to justice. As the first light of dawn broke over the city skyline, they knew they were on the cusp of something monumental. Bondi picked up her phone, dialing the DA's office. "It's Bondi. We have the evidence. We need that warrant, and we need it now." The DA's voice was steady on the other end of the line. "Consider it done, Bondi. We'll have Kinsey in cuffs by the end of the day." As they hung up the phone, Bondi and Henshaw exchanged a look of triumph. They had done it. They had secured the final nail in Kinsey's coffin. But as they braced themselves for the storm ahead, they knew that the real battle was only just beginning. Later that day, as they stood outside the courthouse, warrant in hand, Bondi turned to Henshaw, her voice steady and determined. "This is it, Mark. The moment we've been fighting for. Let's bring Kinsey to justice." Together, they strode into the courthouse, ready to face whatever came their way. The city held its breath, waiting for the storm to break. Would Bondi and Henshaw emerge victorious, or would Kinsey's web of corruption ensnare them all? Stay tuned to find out as the thrilling saga continues. Chapter 7. Justice Unleashed, Kinsey's Dramatic Takedown. The courthouse buzzed with an electric energy as Pam Bondi and Detective Mark Henshaw strode through its hallowed halls, warrant in hand. Today was the day they would bring Judge Kinsey to justice, exposing his web of corruption for all to see. The air was thick with anticipation as they pushed open the heavy wooden doors of the courtroom, all eyes turning to them. Kinsey sat on the bench, his expression a mask of calm, but Bondi could see the flicker of unease in his eyes. He knew something was coming, but he wasn't about to go down without a fight. Bondi stepped forward, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Your Honor, we have a warrant for your arrest. You are being charged with multiple counts of corruption, including manipulating court cases for personal gain and accepting bribes." A gasp rippled through the courtroom as Kinsey's face paled. He gripped the gavel tightly, his knuckles turning white. "This is outrageous," he spat. "You have no right to barge in here and make such baseless accusations." Bondi's eyes flashed with determination. "Oh, but we do, Your Honor. We have irrefutable evidence of your crimes. Transaction logs, case notes, conversations, it's all here." She held up the flash drive, a symbol of his impending downfall. Kinsey's voice trembled with rage. "This is a witch hunt. I demand that these charges be dropped immediately." Henshaw stepped forward, his voice steady and unyielding. "I'm afraid that's not going to happen, Your Honor. The evidence speaks for itself, and it's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." The courtroom erupted into chaos as Kinsey stood, his face contorted with fury. "You will regret this, Bondi. I have powerful friends, and they will not stand for this injustice." Bondi met his gaze head-on, her voice unwavering. "Your threats don't scare me, Kinsey. Justice will prevail, no matter how hard you try to fight it." As the words left her lips, a team of officers entered the courtroom, ready to take Kinsey into custody. The judge's eyes widened in disbelief as they approached, his protests echoing through the chamber. "Judge Robert Kinsey, you are under arrest," one of the officers declared, slapping a pair of handcuffs onto his wrists. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The courtroom watched in stunned silence as Kinsey was led away, his threats of retribution ringing in their ears. Bondi and Henshaw exchanged a look of triumph, knowing that they had finally brought the corrupt judge to justice. But as the adrenaline of the moment began to fade, Bondi couldn't shake the feeling that their work was far from over. Kinsey's arrest was a significant victory, but it was just the beginning of a much larger battle. His allies were still out there, lurking in the shadows, ready to strike. Later that day, as they regrouped in Bondi's office, the weight of their mission settled over them. They had taken down one corrupt official, but the web of deceit ran deep, and they knew they couldn't let their guard down. Bondi turned to Henshaw, her expression grave. "We did it, Mark. We brought Kinsey to justice. But our fight is far from over. We need to stay vigilant, keep pushing until we've dismantled the entire network." Henshaw nodded, a determined look in his eyes. "We won't stop until every last one of them is behind bars, Pam. We owe it to the people to see this through to the end." As they braced themselves for the battles ahead, Bondi and Henshaw knew that the road to justice was long and fraught with danger. But with each step forward, they were one step closer to dismantling the corrupt system that had plagued their city for far too long. Would they be able to bring the entire network to its knees, or would the shadows of power consume them all? Stay tuned to find out as the thrilling saga continues. Chapter 8. Unfinished Business. The fight for justice continues. The city skyline loomed large as Pam Bondi and Detective Mark Henshaw stood outside the prison, watching as Judge Kinsey was led inside, his threats of retribution still echoing in their minds. They had done it. They had brought one of the most corrupt figures in the judicial system to justice. But as they looked out over the city, they knew their work was far from over. Kinsey's arrest was just the tip of the iceberg, and the real battle was only just beginning. Inside the prison, Kinsey sat in a stark interrogation room, his once imposing demeanor now replaced with a look of defeat. Bondi and Henshaw entered, their expressions unyielding as they took their seats across from him. "It's over, Kinsey," Bondi said, her voice steady and unwavering. "Your reign of corruption ends here. But we know you're not the only one involved. It's time to start talking." Kinsey's eyes narrowed, a flicker of defiance still burning within them. "You think you've won, Bondi? You think this is over? You have no idea what you're up against." Henshaw leaned in, his voice low and threatening. "We know exactly what we're up against, Kinsey, and we're not backing down. You can either cooperate and make this easier on yourself, or you can face the full force of the law alone." Kinsey scoffed, but Bondi could see the cracks in his resolve. "You're bluffing. You don't have the power to take down the entire network. They'll crush you before you even get close." Bondi's eyes flashed with determination. "Try us, Kinsey. We've taken down bigger fish than you before, and we're not about to stop now. The people deserve justice, and we're going to see that they get it." As the hours ticked by, Bondi and Henshaw wore Kinsey down, their relentless questioning chipping away at his defenses. They knew that every name he gave them, every transaction he revealed, brought them one step closer to dismantling the corrupt system that had plagued their city for far too long. Finally, Kinsey broke, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "All right, Bondi. You win. I'll give you what you want. But you have to promise me protection. The people I'm about to name, they won't go down without a fight." Bondi nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "You have our word, Kinsey. Now start talking." As Kinsey began to reveal the inner workings of the corrupt network, Bondi and Henshaw listened intently, their minds racing with the implications. They knew that every name he gave them was a potential target, every transaction a piece of the puzzle that would ultimately bring the entire system crashing down. But as they left the prison, armed with the information they needed to continue their fight, Bondi and Henshaw knew that the road ahead was fraught with danger. The enemies they were about to face were powerful and ruthless, and they wouldn't hesitate to strike back with deadly force. Back in Bondi's office, they huddled over a map of the city, marking the locations of their new targets. Their determination was unwavering, their resolve unshakable. They had come this far, and they weren't about to back down now. "We're in this for the long haul, Mark," Bondi said, her voice steady and determined. "We're going to take down every last one of them, no matter what it takes." Henshaw nodded, a fierce look in his eyes. "We're with you, Pam. Every step of the way. Let's bring these bastards to justice." As they braced themselves for the battles ahead, Bondi and Henshaw knew that the fight for justice was far from over. But with each step forward, they were one step closer to dismantling the corrupt system that had plagued their city for far too long. Would they be able to bring the entire network to its knees, or would the shadows of power consume them all? Stay tuned to find out as the thrilling saga continues. Justice prevails, the fall of a corrupt empire. In a gripping finale, Pam Bondi and Detective Mark Henshaw stood tall as the last of Kinsey's corrupt allies were brought to justice. The city breathed a sigh of relief, finally freed from the shadows of corruption that had plagued it for so long. Bondi's relentless pursuit of justice had toppled an empire, proving that no one is above the law. But their fight wasn't over. New threats lurked in the darkness, waiting for their moment to strike. Bondi and Henshaw knew they had to stay vigilant, ready to face whatever challenges came their way. With determination in their hearts and justice on their side, they were prepared to take on the next battle. Don't miss a beat of their thrilling journey. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and tap the bell to stay tuned for more heart-pounding stories of courage and justice. The fight continues, and you won't want to miss a single moment.